Well, good morning to you. It is the Nikki and Medoro show. Ooh, echo, echo. Sorry about that. And now you can see this outline there. I'll get it together. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here on this Tuesday, this post Eclipse day. And I saw this article. I thought it was really funny. Why do my eyes hurt is one of the most commonly searched terms, as if we haven't heard over and over again. Don't look directly at the sun. Don't look at the eclipse without glasses. We'll talk about it in just a minute. But first, some people to thank already out of the box on this Nikki Medoro show. A huge thank you to Maud for the vote of support and kindness, because I'm telling you, that is so necessary and needed, especially this morning. I, I have to tell you something about what was just happening at my house, but Maud, that nice comment and the contribution really just made my day. Spencer, thank you so much. Really, really kind of you. Always supporting the show. You are awesome. I was just having a conversation with my son about people that say mean things at school. And it's really interesting how I don't know, how saying something nice, this nice comment, can just uplift you for the rest of the day. I'm not quite sure how to help my child's mental health when there's other people that are constantly tearing down. All we can do is lift up, but sometimes it's rough. And so to come in here and see that nice words from Maud and contribution from Spencer is really, really kind. Later in the show, I want to talk to you about, I don't want to say a fight at my house, but kind of I'll call it a disagreement, where I don't think we're going to see eye to eye, about whether or not you should pull a child out of school to help bolster an organization, I could say. I'll tell you about it in just a minute. But let's start with, first, please click like and please click subscribe on this Nikki Medoro show. I so appreciate your help on that. Nikki is out, but we are still here pulling it all together. So let's talk about this whole eclipse thing that happened yesterday. Didn't last for very long, but a lot of people apparently didn't heed the warning to wear protection over their eyes or to use a colander. I got some great pictures, by the way, of people using colanders and seeing the reflection on the ground. Very cool, and thank you for sending. But the Google searches for eyes hurt spiked after the eclipse. Eye pain, the search spiked. I'm telling you. I guess it's too, you know, you maybe you didn't take the time to do what you were supposed to do if you wanted to see the eclipse and go out and get the glasses. And so then you are at the last minute and you don't have any equipment, and maybe you want to look at it and you don't like the colander method. Apparently people who decided they were just going to look up without any eye protection went to the internet last night searching for eye pain. Google said they had a spike in the searches, "Why do my eyes hurt?" or "eyes hurt," and related search inquiries as the solar eclipse ended. So here's what they say you should do if you're having eye pain. And by the way, it's not just eye pain. Here's what happens if you were looking at the sun for too long. You get blurry vision, possibly a headache, a blind spot in your central vision in one or both eye, increased sensitivity to light, distorted vision, such as a straight line appearing bent or a door jamb looking a little curvy, changes in the way you see color. They call it dyschromatopsia. They say if that is happening to you, don't panic. Don't panic. That if you're having this kind of thing, schedule an appointment with your ophthalmologist. It doesn't say this. I would say also maybe rest your eyes a little bit, but it's called solar retinopathy, and it can last for hours after exposure. Sometimes it doesn't start until 6 hours after, sometimes 12 hours after. But if you looked at the total solar eclipse without eye protection, it can be one of the symptoms of light damaging your retina. So yeah, you got to go see your ophthalmologist. I'm telling you, there may be parts of the world, and I was talking to Courtney actually about this the other day, where people don't get the message. Maybe it's not publicly made available like it is here, because I haven't read any story, heard any story without the attached first, don't look at it without these glasses, right? But she was saying in 2017, 30% of people didn't use the glasses and suffered some type of eye problem because of it. So I guess it's not uncommon to have that happen, but it just feels like we really went over that, you know? Yeah. I'm going to the chat. Oh, you're talking about night driving. Yeah. That eclipse was lame. uh, a lot of people having some eye stuff going on, but not probably because of the eclipse, right? Yeah. No. I think the next Google search is, why is my cell phone camera not working right? Because didn't we hear that too? People don't listen. They're like, yeah, whatever. They don't really mean it. They're just full of it, right? Fake news. Yeah, right. Murphy wants to know, does his school have a Project Cornerstone or Be a Buddy? No. You know, it's interesting. He has good friends. It's just, he also has some mean kids in his school. So, I don't know. He doesn't have the Project Cornerstone. Yeah, avoiding the bucket dippers. I'll talk to him about that today, though. That's a really good point and a good way to put it. So thanks, Murphy, for the advice. I appreciate that. Okay, let's move on from the wacky people who decided to look at the world without their glasses on. Did you see the story about Katie Porter? She is. Oh, and I'll take. Sorry, Murphy. I'll take your. It's funny. I tend to read those and then I just kind of move on and forget. Have him watch. Have him watch what? I missed something good there. Okay, Katie Porter is no longer running for office because she didn't get enough votes for the Senate seat that she wanted, and she's still raising money. And people are thinking, why? What are you raising money for? That's a little weird, right? And she said, no, this is what I've always done. She, of course, lost to Adam Schiff, and Steve Garvey is the GOP opponent that will be running against him. But she's still sending out these fundraising emails every week. And she told Politico her Truth to Power leadership PAC is a way for her to try to ensure that, the way she puts it, her crusade against corporate influence in politics continues, even if she no longer holds elected office. So she's going to keep fundraising, and she's going to keep pouring money from people that support her into other Democratic candidates. She has, so far, helped Congressman Josh Harder and Will Rollins. Even money headed to New Jersey from her, Representative Andy Kim, who's running for the Senate. She's given to the Biden-Harris presidential campaign. So I guess people that give money to to Katie Porter, can expect that their money is going to be used to further the Democratic cause. Her criteria for picking candidates to support, she said, boils down to two questions. Will you refuse corporate PAC money? And are you going to support a ban on congressional stock trading? And if those two things are yes, she'll support you. She said that it was a key part of her campaign in 2018 that got her into Congress, and that she continues to see it as a crucial move for Democrats, especially if they're going to win in the fall. And she said there are a lot of younger people who don't show up to the primary, who don't vote, because they see the corruption in politics, right? Politics is not for them. She said, and I thought this was interesting because this is what gets me to the ballot box, like the threat of Trump. I mean, I always vote anyway, but she said, a threat of Trump, while very real and salient to those voters, is not the entirety of what motivates them. It may be necessary, but not sufficient to get them to turn out. She said, how do we get people more confidence in Washington? How do we address the disillusionment about our political system? And this is the way she does it. Trying to elect people that won't take corporate money, PAC money, and won't be trading stocks while they're in Congress and maybe benefiting from their votes. So she's going to keep raising money. She said, it's all very consistent. I'm not writing checks to the powers that be. I'm trying to shape our democracy to be the strongest, best version of itself. Until then, she's going to use her pull, her influence, to help elect other Democrats that see things the way she sees them. What is she going to do with herself? She's going to return to teaching at UC Irvine. And I hope that she'll eventually swing back around and take another crack at politics. Because I think we need people like her. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. So if you're still getting Katie Porter emails, that's why. The state of California, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, has moved to decertify more than 200 police officers. In some cases, they're not telling us why. They're keeping it all very down low. The law is, they passed a law in 2021 after the George Floyd killing. And it's a process by which the state of California can decertify a police officer. So the author of the bill was talking about the statewide decertification process. Even if you decertify an officer and take them off the job, that the officers could still evade consequences for anything bad that they did on the job, or misconduct, simply because they get to move to a different department, right? So something bad happens here, you take a job in another state or in another county, you're off the job, so they're not worried about disciplining you anymore, but you're really just doing the same thing in another place. And what he said, Stephen Bradford of Gardena, said allowing the police to police themselves has proven to be dangerous, and it leads to distrust between communities of color and law enforcement. He said police have to be held to a higher standard. And so this law made all records related to the revocation of a peace officer certification public and required to retain the records for 30 years. So the state has to do that. I have to tell you guys, it's spring break. And so there's kids in my house and I'm hearing a knock on the door. Come in, Jacob. Well, let's see what he wants.
Sorry.
How can I help you? Don't come here. What? How can I help you?
One, I wanted to know if I could watch something on the TV.
Mm-hmm.
2,
I love you too, and yes. Thank you.
I could watch. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I love you so
It's not like I'm not, busy, but I love you too. I'm telling you guys, spring break. So, back to the story at hand. Sorry for the interruption. I'll probably have several more of those today. Not from Julia, and I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. But back to police officers. They say you can't have accountability without transparency. So we're supposed to know why officers are any officers that are affected by this are being decertified. But Governor Newsom and other lawmakers apparently tampered with that a little bit last year and exempted the police officer accountability law from having to provide the public records about the cases that it's pursuing against officers until January of 2027. after the commission argued that it didn't have the resources to handle all the public records requests that were coming in for all of this, which seems kind of stupid to me. I mean, that's definitely just an excuse. The commission and the members of the Newsom administration argued the exemption wouldn't limit transparency because people could get the records directly from local departments. But local police departments aren't giving out that information. So apparently, the thought was that by having access to the records and being transparent, it would build trust between the police and the public. And that's necessary, right? Because if you have officers that were decertified, then you need to rebuild some trust in this area. But the San Francisco Chronicle requested misconduct records through the California Public Records Act for officers from 7 Bay Area police departments who were being decertified. And they did it when this whole decertification thing was just going through. They looked at 39 Bay Area officers. In 32 of the cases, public information was available about criminal charges against the officers. But for 7, where public information wasn't readily available online, the Chronicle requested records from both the state and local law enforcement departments and only got them, I would say, for 1. They were sent information saying an officer was being suspended with information redacted. Others, the Chronicle was just told, go to the local police department. And none of those departments provided the records. So if that's the Chronicle, imagine if you're the family member affected by one of these police officers. They're not going to tell you anything. Because if they tell you something, they may open themselves up to a lawsuit. Is it more important to get rid of the officer that is not conducting him or herself properly? Or is it more or is it more important to be publicly transparent about it? Because if that's the case, then there might be cover-ups as police departments try to keep these people on so that they don't open themselves up to these lawsuits or whatever else. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. The Chronicle goes on to talk about their trials and tribulations trying to get all this information. It's almost impossible. It's personnel records. They don't have to disclose these things. The police departments weren't providing the records. So, it's interesting how this is all working out. And I think how the wagons are circled around departments, but not around officers for all this. Anyway, thought that was an interesting story to bring up to you today. So let's talk about what happened at my house, all right? My daughter is part of this youth symphony, this countywide youth symphony. So it's not attached or associated with the school district in any way. She's also a member of the high school marching band and just went on a trip to New York. So she's already missed a little bit of school for music, but it's part of school. It's part of this experience. I completely understand it. Now enter the youth symphony. And I'm so glad she's part of it and feeling good about herself because of it and learning and growing and all of these things. And I do think art is really important and music is very important in her life, both of my children's lives. But the symphony, not knowing it was spring break in Petaluma because they're located in a different town, wants kids to leave school, a school day, where they could be learning about core subjects like math and English and science, etc. And they want to pull them out so that they can go around to other elementary schools in a nearby town and perform for kids. And here's where the disagreement is the performing for other kids to get the kids interested in music, perhaps, or is it to recruit kids to come and join the symphony? Also, yes. So basically, you want my child to leave a school day to go help you recruit for your symphony. And this is where the disagreement comes in because I say no. I say it's not my kid's job to come help you recruit. And my husband says it's really important. It's a really important part of music, of the symphony. Sorry, I'm trying to move things around here. It's a really important part of keeping the symphony alive, right? And sparking love of the arts in kids. If they see other kids come and play music, they'll be like, oh, I want to do that. I understand all that. And it's a moot point because my child's on spring break. And so right now she's performing in elementary schools in a neighboring city. But if she weren't on spring break and if it were a real school day, should I pull her out of school to have her go do that? I feel like no is the answer. My husband feels like yes is the answer. So there we go. This is what I wanted your opinion on, to see what you had to say. Mindy says, I think it's to excite other kids to join the band, and it's a good thing. But what about her schooling? What about, is allowing her to miss school for that like saying, well, then your school day isn't as important as this? And I have to say, school's going to come first always. That's the message I want to send to her, right? That's what I've tried this whole childhood to kind of make important. First thing we do when we get home from school, homework. School always comes first. Do the schoolwork, then get to the fun stuff. Not that schoolwork can't be the fun stuff, but I want it to be a priority. Whoa, you guys, maybe I'm too brutal on this. All right, I'll have to rethink. Nick says I agree with the hubby. Yeah. SJ Lola says I'd pull my child out of school for anything that encourages participation in a music program. So interesting. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, got a croissant that I can't eat. Is the symphony nonprofit? I don't know the answer to that. I want to say yes, I think it is. Grady says her schooling is most important. Randy's like, take her out of school for the day. Missing one day of school isn't going to hurt her. But she just got back from New York where she missed 3 days of school because of a high school band trip. And that was affiliated with school, right? So, I mean, how much school is she going to miss for music? I don't know. Chris says, as a retired teacher, it's never easy. This is not a recruiting trip, but a motivational trip to get kids interested in instruments. The county symphony is probably an honors group. I will say it costs money to participate. Now, whether it's for a profit or not, I don't think it is, but I don't know. Randy says, don't you consider her part of her education and overall development? Yes, but she's getting that music and that development at school. And she goes to the symphony on the weekends, right? Where she practices. There's events that she'll perform where she'll perform. And so is it necessary to go on a recruiting trip? Again, a moot point because it's spring break and she's not missing any school for it. But I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way that the symphony would even ask this. That right now in Santa Rosa, there's a bunch of kids missing school so they can go around from elementary school to play music for kids that they hope join the symphony. Mindy says kids need to have some fun. It's good for her and it's good for the kids she performs for. I will say that sometimes I let her take a mental health day, but I think this is different. I think it's a different ask. Jim says, school day, skip? Yes. If you're smart enough to be in the music thing, you're smart enough to handle the missing one school day. Look at athletes who skip for practices sometimes. Yeah. Grady says she's already participating in music, so it's not that important. Really good. So yeah, but I will say after New York, there were some, they have this, now, I don't know if you know this, Mama, I think you have an older boy too, so you might, they have this software they use for parents, and you can keep track of, has your high school, or usually it starts in junior high, where you can see everything they've turned in, and if they have any missing assignments, they'll pop up in red. And it's to be expected that she would have missing assignments after New York because there were labs in biology that she wasn't there for and couldn't make up, while she was in New York. PE days. So she's got 7 red marks because of New York. So she's already working at a loss. Are the grades okay? Yes. But still, she's got some things to make up. Lori says, this shouldn't be dependent on kids' academic status. They can make a recruitment video. If in-person is important for a performer and observer, I have a strongly academic kid. I think I'm overreacting. Well, okay. All right. I will cease and desist because I was just thinking, all right, well, Liz says school comes first. It's hard to catch up with schoolwork. It's true. Mindy says, don't worry about it. She'll catch up, no problem. Gordon's school comes first. Can she make up the work ahead of time? If so, no harm, no foul in a happy household. It's true. Again, it's spring break, so there's nothing to make up here for this day. Mindy says the experience to perform for other kids is such a good thing. It's not a music class, says Grady. It's a recruiting benefit, not benefiting your child. She's already in music. It's true. I mean, I suppose you could argue that anytime she has to perform in front of others, it's a good thing for her, right? Putting all the things she's practiced into play. But I just don't like that the symphony does this, and I understand that they need members to keep going and to keep thriving. And I want that for them. But I just don't like that they would pull kids out of school to do it. Jim says every time she practices in front of a crowd, it builds confidence, which is not a teachable skill. Katie agrees with the husband. If the grades, interest in school are high enough, it's another learning experience for her. Yeah. And Lori says your kid's mature enough to make and keep a commitment to catch up any work. It's also an important development opportunity. As a teacher, she says, I hate when kids miss days, but agree with your husband, in-person performances are important for performers and for viewers. And Kathy, as a former professional musician, says the symphony experience is different from the band experience. She should go. She could make up the classwork. All right. I don't know exactly how many kids are in the orchestra, but I know that she's the only bassoonist. So there is that. Ask her what she wants to do. Let her decide what she'd like to do in the situation. And some teachers might accept an essay about the trip, why it's important as makeup work. Yeah. The symphony did not. The symphony is in a different town where it's not spring break. And so there's a bunch of kids in Santa Rosa who are going from elementary school to elementary school to try to recruit kids. I think it's to try to recruit kids to the symphony. Maybe they didn't realize it was spring break in Petaluma. But I was having a hard time with it. If she had been in school this week, letting her go to Santa Rosa to go from school to play music. But you guys have given me a lot of food for thought, and I knew you would, and I'm so grateful. Brian says, I think the effect on her esteem by encouraging and influencing one child outside of her circle of friends will be a long-lasting sense of pride for her to remember and cherish for a long time. Interesting. We have, and again, it's spring break here, so it all ended up working out. But it was just the thought that the symphony would do that they aren't putting academics first. And the message that sends to kids. Should we be always putting academics first? And while arts are hugely important, music and theater and all the things I've tried to encourage in her and my son Jacob over the years, all of these things that I think are important, that I find valuable, should those come second? And I think yes. I think you do the academics first, you make it a priority, and then comes everything else. Once you've achieved success here, then you pull in all the rest. Beth says, I think it's strange the two school districts aren't in rhythm. Different school districts, different leadership, but yes. And it's interesting because I think Nikki's kids were have a different spring break as well. So Mindy says it would be cool if your daughter wanted to join the San Francisco Symphony someday. Yeah, I'm telling you, when she went to New York and she stood in front of Juilliard and had her picture taken, and then the next day she snuck in and stood on the Juilliard steps and had her picture taken, I think there's something in her mind kind of sparked a little bit. And again, that was a band trip, right? And she was missing school to go do these things. And yet important things kind of started happening in her mind. So I see your point, folks that have said it, and I think that's true. Egolf says music is definitely math. Jeff says, I say no. You're not going. That's kind of where I fell on it. I'm like, no, you're going to miss biology? You're already behind? You're going to miss English? No. You're going to miss math? Forget it. Mike says, having her listen to your show right now would be a great learning experience. The conversation is not one that we didn't have at the kitchen table, right? My husband and I debating back and forth. I wouldn't say it was a fight, but we never came to a place in this situation where we actually agreed on it until we realized it was spring break and that she was going anyway, so whatever. But just philosophically, whether or not you should miss school so that you can go do something like this. Yeah. You guys have so many good ideas. SJ Lola says, although I disagree with your position, I understand why you're torn on this one. Yeah. It's true. And I do agree with you about math and music being part of that and the way of thinking. Chris has a bassoonist in the family. Yeah. She plays a lot of instruments. Bassoon is, though, I think the one she's really focusing on the most right now. Jeff says, this reminds me of coaches wanting to pull kids out of class for sports. I don't agree with that either. Do I think sports are important? And moving and knowing about how your body works and exercising it are important things to do? Absolutely. Do I want school to come first? Yes. Lori says, I agree academics come first in general, but we need to model flexibility. I guess I'm not modeling flexibility. Missing and making up work, develop responsibility, and help develop good character traits. Let her know your concerns, pros and cons. And that's really the best advice, I think, is, obviously she's going to go do this, but to talk about the concept and let her know these things. Yeah, I agree with you. SJ Lola says, I'm truly distressed over the loss of music education in our society. I'll tell you what, there's no loss of music education over here. We have bassoon lessons every week. We have 3 days a week, drumline for 4 hours a day. On the weekends, we have the Santa Rosa Youth Symphony, and we've got piano lessons for one, bassoon lessons for the other. There's high music in this house, right? There's no shortage of this. Just last night, Jacob and I were looking at, on YouTube, they have these tutorials where you can learn how to play. In our case, we were looking at Coldplay songs. The open to this song called Clock. And he was learning how to play that. So, there's no love lost, or there's no and music education lost over here, we could say. Katie says, years ago, the San Francisco Symphony Ballet Opera would offer a free concert for all school kids in San Francisco. And I think that's different if you're going to take your class to the symphony together, right? As part of your school curriculum, and then talk about what you heard. Talk about your experience. It's different than just checking out of school to go do this other thing. Perhaps, although it seems like a lot of people that my kids hang around with are also music minded, so maybe. But yeah, it's definitely a music house over here. Behind me, I've lost track of how many instruments we have. And apparently we can't pick just one now. Jeff says school gets you everywhere. Music won't pay the bills. Oh, pardon me. Well, there are people where music will pay the bills, right? The band director at school, the band teacher. I mean, there are ways to make it work for you. Even if you don't become a famous musician, there are ways that you can do it. You could be a studio musician. You could work for a symphony. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Lori says, sounds like music will always be part of Julia's life, so it's good for her to start learning to balance music with other aspects of life. Lori, you make too much sense, I'm telling you. Jill says, support the arts. It's a great balance to academics. All right. Brian, districts do have different schedules for observing holidays. Crazy but true. El Cerrito and Albany are neighboring and sometimes have different weeks off from school. Yeah, same situation here in this county. Murphy says, my college freshman daughter is already working as a music and marching assistant teacher. Very cool. I'm so proud of her. That's so great. And Lee says, music enriches the spirit. It's true. Well, that's what she's doing today. She's going from elementary school to elementary school and possibly middle school in Santa Rosa. And showcasing what the symphony has to offer. Mama Day 3 Boys says music classes are expensive, right? My sibling and I didn't get to learn to play any instruments. Oh, what a bummer. I had piano lessons when I was little, but I had a really mean piano teacher, and I remember she would take me to the fireplace and clip my nails every week. Not that they were even that long, but she said any white part on your nails would hinder your playing of piano. And so I remember it being a horribly painful experience, and I stopped because I didn't want to go back. And I really love piano too. That was the bummer part. Yes, portions redacted. I agree. It does help people with math and science. But back to Mama, it doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, I guess it depends on what expensive is to you. I pay for a half an hour lesson once a week, $25, which I think is a pretty good deal for piano lessons. Bassoon lessons are more expensive. So it depends, I think, on, how long the lesson is, how old the child is, type of thing. And now, not that this is the best method, but now they can do it there are people that will do it online, which I would argue is really better than nothing. And you can get a little keyboard. You don't have to have a big, expensive piano. So, but it's interesting. I have the same piano from when I was little that's in my living room, and my kids sometimes they'll just play on it and write music on it. So, yeah, I agree, Murphy. Your daughter is awesome. I have a daughter same one, who was selected. Did I tell you guys this? Selected to be the drum major, which is the person that leads the band when they march and has the staff, whatever it's called, the long item, and twirls it around. Not a baton twirler per se, but the leader of the band who helps decide what marches are going to be done, stops and starts and does all these things. They asked her to do it for the next 3 years, which means she won't be playing music during parades and during the times when they march. But she gets to wear a kilt and a special outfit, which means I have to find a summer camp that will teach her how to be a drum major. So that's what we've been looking at. Drum major camps. I'm telling you. And thank you to Murphy for the information that she's passed my way on that. I wish that she had someone like your daughter that could be a mentor to her in these things. Lori says, Julia could be doing her high school community service requirements, teaching assisting music classes. This could be a good contact making, start to be involved in helping other less fortunate kids get started. I don't know how you would start that, but what a great idea, Lori. Yeah, I would love that. Just for her to give beginning flute lessons to people. It'd be great. Brian says, does anyone think Nikki's trip has something to do with the upcoming changes with the show yet to be announced? I can tell you that it doesn't. That she and her husband are part of a bicycle group, and she's talked about this before. And this is their annual bicycle event that they're holding in Las Vegas. So one thing really has nothing to do with another, but I know when she comes back, I think tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit more about the changes. And I think the time of the show is going to change, and the way we do the show will change. But we're going to keep on trucking and stay to have a presence here. But I'll let her talk more about exactly what that means, because I think she and I are actually still fleshing it out as well. So just so you know, one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other. Gordon says, my brother and I were in competition playing on the baby grand piano, right? Mindy says, I love the dancing, twirling a dancing tree in the Stanford band. I was looking online and a lot of bands actually have baton twirlers, but that's not what this is. This is I think this is the leader of the band. I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly what this means. And I said, do you really want to do that? Because it means you won't get to play music. And she goes, I know, but I get to lead the band and wear a different outfit. I'm thinking, girl, go get it. Donald says, I almost became a high school drum major in a marching band eons ago in Michigan. That's awesome. Love it. St. Mary's has a program for marching band. My daughter is a drum major at Richmond High. Claudia, that's amazing. The St. Mary's one is put on by a group called USA, I think, and I've been looking at that camp. Also looking at a few others, and I'm not sure which ones are the best ones, especially for someone who's never done it before and really needs to learn everything. So, Donald says, you direct the music and you lead the marching band down the street. That's right. So, drum major sets the rhythm. Yep. She's worried she's going to drop the thing that you twirl. She's like, what if I throw it in the air and I don't catch it right? She will carry the rod of equity and mercy. Yes, she will. Nice. So that's what's going on over here. Thank you guys for helping me work it out. Apparently, I'm too uptight. I need to be more flexible. And it's okay to miss school once in a while. So, got it. Thank you. And I knew you guys would set me straight, too. I knew it. I knew I had to bring this topic up and talk about it with all of you. Because it's funny, as I'm having the conversation with my husband, I'm thinking about you guys, and I can almost hear what you have to say, what you're typing. And I'm thinking, I wonder what this person would think about this, or I wonder what this person would think about this. So thank you for helping me and having the conversation, because I'm sure Nikki's sorry she missed this one, but I really needed you all on this. Thank you very much for it. All right, let's move on from my own personal music crisis to another music-related story. This one in Chechnya. They are banning all music that they think is too fast or too slow. It's like the fairy tale, not too hot, not too cold, just right. So Goldilocks, right? So authorities in the Russian Republic of Chechnya have announced a ban on music that they consider too fast or too slow. This coming from their Minister of Culture. They've announced the decision to limit all musical, vocal, and choreographic competitions to a tempo ranging from 80 to 116 beats a minute. Nothing else. That's it. I have announced the final decision, said the minister. That from now on, all musical, vocal, and choreographic works must correspond to a tempo of 80 to 116 beats a minute. Under this directive, the region now ensures that Chechen musical and dance creations align with the Chechen mentality and musical rhythm, aiming to bring to the people and the future of our children the cultural heritage of the Chechen people. So the ban means a lot of songs and musical styles like pop and techno, out. They're gone. Can't do that in Chechnya. It is almost an entirely Muslim republic. That includes part of Russia's border with Georgia. And apparently the person in office there, his name is Ramzan Akhmatovich Kadyrov, who's the head of the Chechen Republic, according to this CNN piece, has used his time in office since 2007 to stifle any kind of form of dissent. There are waves of violence there against gay men as well. So not a safe place for some people. I would say a lot of people. United Nations human rights experts have been urging investigations because gay men there were targeted and detained. They'll hurt you if you're gay. They'll hurt you for your sexuality there. The leader, Kadyrov, says there's no gay people in his republic, and that if there are any, they should be taken away from the region. So this is the type of mindset that we have there. And the U.S. State Department has already said this is a gross violation of human rights. So I guess it's not a surprise then that this type of music ban would be put into place. Like, this is the least of their problems, right? They're killing people for being gay. But when I saw that they're banning music deemed too fast or too slow, it kind of was like a little footloosey in a way, right? I mean, so weird. So I guess the only type of music acceptable is the traditional Chechen music where you have to dress up in traditional costume. Is that all you want? And why would you stifle creativity in this way? Let people make the music they want to make. Sometimes, maybe all the time, music comes from a place inside of you. Can you imagine? I mean, if you had a problem with nightclubs or techno music or music that you felt inspired people to drink or, I don't know, cause problems, then attack the problems, not the music. Wild. It's just so controlling and awful. I guess no Sondheim in Chechnya. No. They only want marching bands? Claudia says we'll see how good it feels being a band mom. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, music equals freedom. Freedom to express yourself. They don't want you to express yourself in any way in Chechnya, let alone your sexuality. Yeah. Yeah, shades of Footloose. That's what I was thinking, right? Sounds like they're just afraid. Brian says, how would you love living with that dude? Ugh. No thanks. Yeah. Pretty sure Chechnya is very religious. They say Muslim is the religion there. Not that that has anything to do with fear of music. But yes, it is, K-Plant, a tempo declaration. Of all the things to be concerned about in the world. I mean, even if you were a draconian dictator leader person, I said that very eloquently, even if that were the case, it seems like you would have other things to focus on, right? And not the tempo of music. It's just so weird. Mindy says, Trump wants to do that here. Get ready for boring and controlled America. God, I hope not. Ugh. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting. A musically related story to talk about. I have been remiss in not doing any news for you guys, so let's do a little bit of news before we jump back into it. Let me see if I can play the music sounder on my own. I've already failed. Here it comes. And
now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Let's go to Michigan, where it is sentencing day for the parents of the Oxford High School shooter. James and Jennifer Crumbly were convicted in separate trials on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the November of 2021 shooting deaths of 4 students. They will be, though, sentenced together. They face a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison, and the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office is recommending at least 10 years for each of them. The South and parts of Mississippi Valley dealing with another round of really severe weather. Storms are expected to bring damaging winds there, hail, flooding, maybe even tornadoes today through Thursday. This is from eastern Texas to the southeast coast. Senator Lindsey Graham breaking with former President Donald Trump on abortion. And boy, is this not going over well in Trumpville. The South Carolina Republican said yesterday he respectfully disagrees with Trump's statement that abortion should be a states' rights issue. Graham said the pro-life movement has always been about the well-being of the unborn child, not geography. And Trump did not take kindly to that. There will not be another total solar eclipse in the contiguous 48 states until 2044. Millions traveled to the path of totality yesterday, which spanned from Texas up through a dozen states before ending in Maine. Others just took a moment out of their day to witness the rare cosmic event of the moon temporarily blocking out the sun. I'm telling you, the pictures are really cool. There's a record number of U.S. cities that now have million-dollar homes. A new analysis by Zillow shows 550 places where a typical home is worth more than $1 million. That beats the previous record of 552 cities where home values peaked in 2022. Former President Trump will not get a delay in his New York criminal hush money trial. An appeals court is denying Trump's request today, and the trial is set to start next week. Trump had asked the trial for the trial to be delayed so he can continue to fight a gag order. He's accused of falsifying business records in connection to alleged hush money paid to porn actress Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. House Speaker Mike Johnson is facing pressure from both sides of the aisle over additional U.S. military aid for Ukraine. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer this morning claiming Ukraine is losing the war against Russia because of the Republican-led House failing to act. Johnson has indicated the House will take up the issue as the chamber returns today from a 2-week recess. I was reading an article about Republicans taking up Russian propaganda when it comes to the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Kind of disturbing how this is happening. And again, as mentioned earlier, Google says its search engine went into overdrive yesterday afternoon after many Americans watched the total solar eclipse. Some complained about hurt eyes and worried they'd look at the rare celestial event for too long. Retina experts say there's a valid concern if you were looking at the sun without wearing protective eclipse glasses. There's a reason. There's a reason to be concerned for all of that. Prominent attorney Dennis Prince and his new wife Ashley have been identified by colleagues as the two people killed in Monday's shooting at a law office near Las Vegas. The gunman, identified as the father of Prince's ex-wife's, this is weird, identified as the father of Prince's wife's ex-husband, took his own life. The shooting happened during a deposition. Ashley Prince and her ex-husband Dylan Houston had been involved in a pretty bitter custody dispute there. Sad that that's how it ended up. Norfolk Southern says it has reached a massive settlement following the February of 2023 train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. This is a $600 million settlement. It'll resolve all class action claims within a 20-mile radius of the derailment, and would take care of personal injury claims by residents who live within a 10-mile radius of that site. Norfolk Southern says the settlement is not an admission of wrongdoing or of liability. I guess the question I'd have is this. $600 million sounds like a lot, but when you think about what people were exposed to in the water, in the air, and future health problems that could be associated with that, is $600 million going to be enough to make that right, to make those people whole? And I don't know if that's enough, but that's what it is. So, the governor of Maryland is meeting with lawmakers on Capitol Hill today to discuss funding for the reconstruction of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Governor Wes Moore is lobbying members of Congress to approve funding to help rebuild the bridge and reopen the port of Baltimore as well. The bridge, of course, collapsed after it was struck by a cargo ship last month. I was reading that they're trying to clean this up, and they have to do it very, very carefully and very gently. And that extricating all the pieces of metal from the bridge, from the cargo ship, the containers, and everything, they said it's like playing Jenga. A very important game of Jenga that you don't want to lose. This is a complicated cleanup. So yeah, now we have the governor of Maryland really trying to get the funding for all of this. And I can understand. I mean, this is a very important thoroughfare for the port and roadway for the people there. I mean, imagine here if we lost the Golden Gate, the Bay, any of our bridges, really. I mean, we have a lot of bridges where you could go around, but what an impact to traffic that would be. So I can understand that they want the money approved quickly. They want to get things, moving so that they can try to be back to normal as soon as possible with all this. In California, we are getting 21 years to prepare for the next celestial event, as we mentioned earlier. They had parties all over the place yesterday, and there are pictures today blowing up social media. 35% coverage of the sun is what we got here in California. But, as mentioned, in August of 2045, a bigger section of the country will be covered by a total solar eclipse. And in 2045, if we're all still alive then, California will be in the path as it stretches from the West Coast to the East Coast. So, I kind of felt a little left out yesterday. I don't know if you were a little jealous of all the people that got to be in the path, but this plan we've been talking about here on the Nikki Medoro Show for an overnight train ride between two of California's biggest cities is now moving along. Dreamstar Lines has made the first move to use tracks owned by Union Pacific Railroad. The trains would run on the line between Los Angeles and San Francisco, traveling along the coast. Once a final agreement is made, Dreamstar hopes to offer luxury service with the next generation of sleeper cars. These would have private rooms, they would have queen beds, they would have showers. You could sleep on your way from San Francisco to LA, take a refreshing shower, hop off the train, and get to whatever you need to do in Southern California or Northern California. There is an effort underway here in California to guarantee that every Californian has the right to clean air and water. This is what Assemblyman Isaac Bryan is fighting for. His proposal aims to amend the state constitution. He says it would provide stronger foundation for the overall environmental goal of phasing out the use of oil and gas within the next 2 decades. The measure was expected to pass a committee last night. It could eventually be left up to the voters. Should we have that? A constitutional or state constitutional right to clean air and water? I mean, it seems basic to me. What do you need to live, right? Clean air and water. Yes. Now, if you legislate it, that means that we're going to have to legally crack down on polluters. So, I don't know. We'll see. California getting a little bit more time to shine on the small screen, as if we haven't had it already. A dozen or more TV projects will be shot here in the state through the state's Film and Television Tax Credit Program. 8 are new, 3 are recurring, 1 is relocating to California from New York. That show is the season of Fallout on Amazon Prime Video, which drops all 8 episodes tomorrow. Governor Gavin Newsom says the program has created jobs and it's generated billions of dollars for communities since 2009. So, I mean, hey, anytime you can showcase California, it's a good thing. Very good thing. A judge is dismissing a lawsuit a man filed against members of a Facebook dating group who called him a bad date. It was the first of several lawsuits Stuart Murray filed against more than 50 women earlier this year. Murray had accused members of the private group called Are We Dating the Same Guy? Of defamation, libel, sex-based discrimination, and more. Well, yesterday, a judge ruled there's no evidence of conspiracy and granted an anti-slap motion, SLAPP, and that aims to prevent people who speak out from being silenced. The judge also says, based on the evidence, there's no possibility of Murray winning against the defendants on any of his claims. So, no. Apparently, you can go on the internet and commiserate with other women who've had the unfortunate experience of dating you, and that's going to be okay. I mentioned this yesterday, but one of the most coveted comics of all times has sold at auction in Texas. This is Action Comic #1. And it is the very first to feature Superman. I think I have a picture of it. And maybe I don't. This comic set a record for how much it went for. I have a picture of it. Here it is. Look at that. There it is. See Superman lifting up the car. Action Comic #1, featuring the first appearance of Superman. When it came out in 1938, it sold for 10 cents. You can see the price there right on the cover. 10 cents. The bidding at Heritage Auctions set a record at $6 million. It makes this the most valuable comic book in the world. 10 cents to 6 mil. Pretty good investment. I don't know. I'm sure that somebody has one of these laying around in their attic in perfect condition. And I was saying yesterday, what do you do with it? Because you want to protect your investment, which means that you've got to keep it in its case, right? Every time you take it out to look at it, you risk having it damaged in some way. Every time you take it out to look at it, the oil from your fingers get onto the pages. So if you want it in this condition, in the $6 million condition, you kind of just have to have it in the plastic, I would think. I don't know. $6 million. I think of all the things you could do with $6 million. Buying a comic book does not come to mind. Yeah. But then again, I'm the one who doesn't want my kid to skip school and go play art. So, go play music, I should say. Well, there you go. Maybe I just don't get the whole comic book thing. I know people love their comic books, but still. Speaking of the Eclipse, which we talked about a moment ago, Captain Kirk, William Shatner, is talking about it as well. And he's saying, here's a picture of it from yesterday. That's a picture from Mexico. Here's a picture of Bailey's beads. I think that's the coolest shot of all. Captain Kirk, he says, this solar eclipse captivated Americans across the nation. William Shatner said, people who experienced such an event before there was scientific explanation must have been dumbstruck. He went on to explain the cosmic scale of the eclipse and why he was so excited to watch it unfold. Shatner viewing the eclipse with thousands of others at Indiana University. How cool to get to watch it with him. That'd be a kick. Love it. Speaking of the eclipse, the Akron Zoo in Ohio says its Galapagos tortoises weren't feeling very frisky during the solar eclipse. In years past, the zoo says the tortoises would begin to breed if there was an eclipse that was happening. The behavior was easy to identify as they're really slow moving. It's the largest tortoise species on the planet. But that was not the case for this eclipse. They just apparently stared at the sky? I don't know. I mean, I would think that they wouldn't stare at the sky, but hey, I guess that's what happened. And that, my friends, is the news on the Nikki Medoro Show. There it is. Okay, let's get back into it. Because I don't know if you guys saw this story about Jack Smith, who is the special counsel in some of these Trump cases. And he's fighting against Trump trying to get an obstruction charge kicked. And what he says is the whole fake elector scheme really means that the obstruction charges are staying. So the attempt to allegedly, do we have to say allegedly still? We do. Assemble false slates of presidential electors in 2020 could actually wind up helping Jack Smith's case and shielding it from a Supreme Court ruling that could narrow the obstruction law at the heart of the indictment against Trump. Smith said yesterday that even if the Supreme Court justices agree with the recent challenge that has been brought by several defendants involved in this obstructing case, the charges against Trump relying on the same law would survive because of what he's accused of doing. And so he's a little less concerned, I guess, about the decision. The January 6th defendants bringing the challenge to the Supreme Court say the Justice Department has misused this 20-year-old obstruction law against pro-Trump rioters. The statute was only meant to apply to evidence tampering, like document shredding in the Enron scandal, not to more general efforts to prevent Congress from meeting. The Supreme Court's decision to take up the case apparently hints at the likelihood that the justices might be sympathetic to those arguments. And so while it could affect 2 of the 4 felony counts that Trump faces in the election-related federal case, Smith says the charges could be proven even if the justices side with the January 6th defendants. That his efforts to use fraudulent electoral certifications rather than genuine ones at the joint session mean the debate about the scope of the obstruction statute shouldn't impact the case against him. That, because Trump's bid to enlist allies in 7 swing states, which were all won by Joe Biden, to sign certificates claiming to be the genuine presidential electors qualifies as obstruction even under a narrow interpretation of that law. So I don't think he's going to weasel his way out of that one. But it's something we'll keep our eye on, right? The whole thing between Oakland Airport and San Francisco International Airport is, I guess, escalating. So if you didn't hear the story, Oakland Airport wants to change its name to San Francisco Bay Oakland Airport. And San Francisco International Airport's like, no, you can't say San Francisco in your name. It'll be too confusing for people. Plus, that's our name, not your name. You're Oakland, we're San Francisco. And San Francisco International is serious about it. So now, the city attorney's office in San Francisco is indicating that it is willing to take legal action to keep the San Francisco name for San Francisco International Airport. They might sue Oakland in order to stop them from doing this. They don't want Metropolitan Oakland International Airport to change its name to San Francisco Bay Oakland International Airport. The reason Oakland wants to do this, they say, is because people don't know where Oakland is. So if you were from somewhere else flying into the Bay Area, you might not know where Oakland is. So you should know, given the name of the airport, that you're flying into the San Francisco Bay Area, right? It's an effort to boost geographic awareness among travelers. So SFO has expressed serious concerns about this. And now, I guess, a threat of a lawsuit as well. The Port of Oakland will have a board meeting April 11th, so just in a couple days, and commissioners are scheduled to decide whether to officially move forward with this whole name change thing. And now the attorney representing the city of San Francisco is threatening them with a lawsuit. Maybe that will make it a little less attractive, I don't know. San Francisco City Attorney David Chu sending a letter to the port commissioners informing them the proposed plans to use San Francisco in the renaming of OAK infringes on SFO's trademark. The city of San Francisco, they say, owns the federal trademark for San Francisco International Airport. And the city has owned the registration for nearly a century, and so it's become incontestable under federal law. The letter says, should you continue in these efforts, I intend to pursue legal action to prevent your use of the proposed new name. San Francisco and SFO are in this together. They said, SFO said, we support bringing a legal challenge if necessary. The Port of Oakland, defiant on this, they say the proposed name modification will clarify, not confuse. The new name identifies where OAK is actually located, which is on the San Francisco Bay. This according to the port spokesperson talking to SF Gate. If the proposed name modification is approved by the board, the port will take all appropriate measures to defend its right to use this accurate geographic identifier. This whole meeting is taking place on Zoom, 3:30 p.m. on April 11th, and members of the public can participate via teleconference on Zoom. It'll be an interesting one. I mean, I think it's stupid. I think such a horrible crime has befallen Oakland, and Hagenberger on the way to and from the airport is so incredibly unsafe that car rental companies say don't stop for gas on Hagenberger. The In-N-Out has closed. Other businesses have closed. Right? It's a dangerous spot. Maybe they think changing the name, people will not realize what's going on here. I don't know the answer. But it seems so weird that you would change the name of Oakland Airport. All right. That's what's happening there. I tend to fall, I think, on the side of SFO on this one and the city attorney, David Chu. Let's go to the chat and see what you guys have to say about it. Oakland has serious problems, writes Liz. Changing the name isn't going to help. Exactly. And really, and you make such a good point there. Like, that's where you're going to put your energy, your time and energy, right? Changing the name. Why don't we put our time and energy into cleaning up the crap? How about that? Come on now. Mindy says, don't change the name. No. Beth says, hi, Beth. East Bay would be good, but there's a big East Bay back east. I'm thinking Maryland. I mean, Oakland East Bay Airport? Maybe. Katie says, come on, San Francisco, show some class, accept it. San Bruno may lay claim to San Francisco International. Did you know that although SFO is in San Bruno, it's technically that airport is part of San Francisco? I didn't either. So San Francisco police are at the airport, I don't think San Bruno police, right? Murphy says, calling both airports San Francisco is too confusing. I agree. What if you're telling people to come pick you up at the San Francisco airport? Which one do you mean? And then you end up across the bay from each other. What if you think you're flying into one, you book your car rental at SFO, but you're flying into SFO Bay? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. Mama says, I think they want to change it because people know what Oakland is like. It doesn't work that way, though, right? Heather says they can't just paint over Oakland's reputation with an airport name change. I mean, come on. If the case is really that you feel people don't know where Oakland is, how about an education campaign? How about a little pamphlet in the in-flight magazine with a little map showing right where you're going? I don't know. But yeah, you can't paper over the reputation. Absolutely. Carl says, maybe Perth International should become San Fran Faraway Airport? I don't know. Is it Carl? Carl Northeast? All right. I must have missed something there. San Fran Faraway Airport. Oh, you're saying other airports should change their name to San Francisco as well. Yeah. Murphy says, I think that name change is a terrible idea, but I also think people do know where Oakland is. and I've been trying to avoid it. It's true. I have to say I was a little bit worried. My daughter recently went to New York and they flew out of Oakland and rode on New York subways, which are also apparently undergoing a situation where they've called in the National Guard to check bags because there's so much violence on the subway. She rode the subway. She was fine. She drove down, I think they drove down Hagenberger. They were fine. But I think people maybe have extra worries when they hear, oh, you're going flying out of Oakland. Well, drive fast, lock your doors, and try to avoid red lights on Hagenberger, right? Or Ron says, or they do know where Oakland is, and that's the problem, right? Mindy says they need to clean up the sideshow problem as well. Did you see the one over the weekend? It stopped traffic on the Bay Bridge. They had about 100 cars involved in that. Wild. The pictures are crazy. SJ Lola says SFO ought to be careful with this. The airport is located in San Mateo County. Yeah, but again, I believe the rules are such that even though that's where it's located, it's technically that airport is associated and part of San Francisco, which is why San Francisco police are the ones that have an airport police station there. So I think it's technically part of the city, if that makes any sense. Michael says, people are geographically ignorant. I can see many arriving in Oakland who thought they were on a plane to San Francisco. Right? And wouldn't you, if people don't know where Oakland is, then why would you want to make it even more confusing? So if you're worried that people don't know where Oakland is, again, teach them that. Right? It's a different name. Oh, Oakland, I wonder where that is. I Google it. If it just says San Francisco Bay, that can be confusing, and that doesn't teach me anything. Quesadilla 79 says, and they have funds allocated for police at airports too. Yeah. Mindy says, hire more police and start enforcement. That should be the focus, if you're worried about it. Murphy says, did you know that when I say peninsula for the Bay Area, I've had people think I mean the Michigan Upper Peninsula, and that surprised me. I mean, I guess people are going to look at or hear something that reminds them of where they've come from, and they're going to think, oh, you know, this is, if you say, welcome to the East Bay, I'm going to think East Bay here in the Bay Area or North Bay. Even if I'm somewhere else, that's probably the first thing that pops into my mind. So, and yet I know there are other East Bays in the world. There's a Bay Area in Southern California, right? So, I mean, these names aren't specific just to us, but in our area, they should be, right? Liz avoids Oakland. Joanne would be very unhappy if I landed in Oakland and didn't realize it. Don't. Well, I mean, remember, I think it was during the Asiana Airlines crash at SFO, they were diverting planes to land over in Oakland. It is extremely helpful to have such a major airport so close. Has been helpful multiple times. But I just don't think the name change is wise. Yeah. And so now we've got the lawsuit. We've got the Port of Oakland members saying, you can't tell us what to do. I'm telling you. Mars, if you can't Google where you're going, that's on you. Oakland name has terrible crime rhetoric. It's true. Ron says, when aviation started, they used 2 letters to designate airports. I didn't know this. As airports increased, they increased it to 3 letters. And the O in SFO is from the last letter in San Francisco. Well, that makes perfect sense to me. Jeff says San Jose doesn't have any problem. I mean, I'm sure there's crime in San Jose. San Jose is a huge homeless problem, but I haven't heard of problems at the airport. So, Sandy wants to know how long Oakland Airport has existed. People have only recently started having trouble understanding where it is. Yeah, it seems like it's been around for a while, doesn't it, Sandy? I don't know. Michael says in 96, the airport's name was changed from Fresno Air Terminal to Fresno Yosemite International Airport to attract out-of-state and international visitors to Yosemite National Park to the airport. Okay, that's great, as long as there wasn't already a Yosemite airport, right? because that would have been confusing. And I think that's the point here. But good information and interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah. The South Bay, says Sandy, refers to San Jose and the Bay Area. But in SoCal, South Bay refers to Redondo Beach and Manhattan Beach. Yeah, I mean, you know. Eileen, hello, says, Oakland has done this before. International Boulevard was East 14th Street. The new name has not made any difference in the crime rate on that street. No. As Heather said, you could try to paint over it. It's still there. It's not going away. Yeah. Oakland Berkeley Airport? That would be good. Maybe more people know where Berkeley is because of UC Berkeley. I don't know. But leave the name San Francisco Bay out of it. I just think that's a recipe for a confusing disaster. All right, good conversation on that. We know more, and this is a conversation we've had before on the show as well. We know a little bit more about where the homes will be that State Farm plans to drop policyholders from. They had to file with the state, and so now we know the zip codes where State Farm plans to drop policyholders. It's really not good for folks here in the Bay Area, I have to say. This is a really rough thing. This recent state filing by State Farm shows exactly where California's largest home insurer plans to drop tens of thousands of policyholders, and it's mostly because of a significant wildfire risk. The zip code 94563, that's the city of Orinda, is on top of the list. More than 50% of policyholders there are expected to be impacted by this State Farm decision. Residents tell KTVU, listen, if there's an increased wildfire risk, I'm happy to pay more, but it's like we're not even being given an option here. We're just going to drop your policy and walk away, and that's it. Other places affected. Places closest to wildfire zones. Santa Rosa, the Oakland Hills, again, Orinda. These are the places. They have a thing online where you can type in your zip code and see if you're among the areas affected by the State Farm decision. And it'll be scary, I mean, because you'll know before you get the notice, so I guess you can at least try to be preemptive about it, perhaps. So Orinda is the top, Pacific Palisades, the Los Angeles Brentwood area, Calabasas, Lafayette, Santa Rosa, Beverly Hills, the Bel Air area of Los Angeles, Santa Rosa, Rancho Santa Fe, Grass Valley, Tarzana, Malibu, Nevada City, Oakland, because of the Oakland Hills, Encino, Thousand Oaks, Westlake Village, Santa Rosa again, Agora Hills, Chatsworth, Alamo, Lake Arrowhead, Danville, again, another Santa Rosa zip code, Danville, Berkeley, Moraga, Canoga Park, Studio City, Santa Barbara, Calistoga, Pasadena, San Diego. The list goes on. Pardon me. I mean, how many people are going to be affected by this? And I get that insurance companies need to make money, and that maybe there's a lot of places in California that are a bad bet. A homeowner telling KTVU, they live in Orinda, the people, his name is Eddie Chen, said, we tried to go with State Farm. They said, no, we're not covering you. People are just having a hard time getting coverage in our area. If there are fewer insurers to choose from, then it gives us less pricing power as well. According to this article, a few streets over, people covered by AAA were also dropped in Orinda. And the homeowner says it feels unreasonable for people in California. Like, we keep getting these huge corporations making decisions. The community has very little decision making. There are things the city is doing for fire prevention. Of course, there's always more to do, but it feels like those proactive measures aren't being taken into consideration. Oh no. As far as when people are expected to get these State Farm letters in the mail, the vast majority of impacted customers have already been notified. Some of these letters are still coming out but a lot of people have already been told. So if you haven't been told, I guess check it out online. Look up State Farm zip codes. I saw on KTVU and I also saw on KTLA where you can enter your zip code in and find out if this is affecting you. We're in some trouble. I don't know how we're going to fix this one. You know who else is in trouble? Bus drivers. This is wild. Apparently, and this isn't even in Oakland, there's been a huge increase in bus driver attacks on Samtrans. And so now Samtrans, San Mateo County Transit, is trying to enact some safety changes to better protect their people. They operate bus routes through the peninsula, not the one in Michigan, the one here in the Bay Area, from South City to East Palo Alto, Foster City to Half Moon Bay. And lately, the bus drivers have become targets of these attacks. One of the bus drivers says, the driving part, I say, is about 20% of the job, and the other 80% is dealing with the public, and that is what makes it very difficult. The district's 320 drivers routinely encounter verbal and physical assaults, even people spitting on them. Man, sometimes it's over a fare dispute. Sometimes it's when the bus driver just tries to enforce the rules. One of the drivers said, when I was telling a passenger not to lie down on the bus so that other passengers could use the seats, she kind of ran toward me. That bus driver wasn't hurt in that incident, but apparently there's been such an increase in these types of cases. 14 cases of assaults against bus drivers in 2023, compared to just a handful from 2018 to 2022. And it's not just Samtrans, this is happening across America. The Samtrans folks say, if we know this is a trend and we're seeing it here at Samtrans, then we have a duty to try to protect our people from these assaults. And so, it's funny, the spokesperson for the Samtrans agency is a really good friend of mine from KGO days. His name is Randall White. And Randall says, the district is installing see-through protective barriers around the driver's compartment to help reduce the risk of violence. So now we have to encase drivers in, plexiglass? So they can't be spit upon or punched or lunged at? That's where we are? Why are people hurting the bus driver? I mean, that's the person responsible for your safety. Don't we want to protect that person? I mean, they're driving, People don't make sense to me. They've also, at Samtrans, approved putting in a new code of conduct and enforcement policy applicable to all passengers and members of the public, which addresses harassment, discrimination, fare evasion, physical and verbal assault, carrying or using weapons. Violators can be removed from a Samtrans vehicle and banned from further use for a definite or indefinite period. I don't think they care. These aren't people who are thinking about the future, right? They're thinking about that moment. Randall White, my friend, said, I would think it's going to make a whole lot of difference with our bus operators, especially the female bus drivers. It's a zero tolerance policy. We're not going to put up with this. So far in 2024, there have been 4 assaults on Samtrans buses. So the installation of the thing around the driver, the partition, is expected to be completed within the next 3 months. The code of conduct will take effect once it's posted up on the Samtrans website. Come on. This is where we are? We have to put the bus driver in plexiglass? I mean, where are we living? What time are we living in? And this isn't even a case where I could see if you're desperate, right? And I can't even see it really, but I can at least wrap my mind around if you're in extreme poverty, you have no money, right? You've got to steal to eat type of situation. So the people that are, breaking into cars, what have you, I can see that they have a means to an end there. But what does attacking the bus driver get you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I am not advocating crime or theft or breaking into cars. Trust me. I'm just saying, at least I can understand that you want stuff, right? But what does it get you to hurt your bus driver? I don't get it. Awful. Imagine having that job and having to deal with that. Let's move on because I'm already frustrated. Did you know that millennials are moving out of cities like Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, even in some cases, San Jose? Millennials are checking out. They account for 18% of moves across state lines in 2023. This according to census data. Where are they going? A new study by this group called Hire a Helper. So already I don't know about their methodology here. Hire a Helper found many millennials are moving to cities and metropolitan areas in warmer locations, a lot like retirees. They're moving to Florida. They're moving to Las Vegas. The moving company found Tampa, Florida, and Jacksonville, Florida had the highest net gain of millennial residents in the country in 2023. Hey, if you could work anywhere, why wouldn't you want to work from somewhere nice and warm? In between Tampa and Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Nevada, which saw 52% more millennials move in than leave last year. The Gen Z magnet, Austin, Texas. Also high on the board, 47% more millennials moving in versus moving out in 2023. So here's the top metros for millennials. It's Tampa, Vegas, Jacksonville, as mentioned, Nashville, Austin, Bridgeport, number 6, 7, Phoenix, 8, Oklahoma City, 9, Richmond, Virginia, and 10, Raleigh, North Carolina. Both New York City and San Jose metros had more than 50% more millennials leave than move in. New York and California losing the most millennials. So the data found millennials were moving to metros around Tampa, Jacksonville, and Austin, and they're moving out of places like El Paso, Texas, and Miami, Florida. So that's interesting. The millennials who did relocate in 2023 were wanting new or better housing, new job or job transfers, and to establish their own households. And that's a pretty big deal. And that's completely understandable when you take a look at cities like San Francisco or anywhere in the Bay Area, the Los Angeles area. You've got people that can't afford to buy a home. And what if it's time for you to establish your own household, get your own family going, right? Get your own life on the road, and you can't afford to buy a house, so you're stuck living like a college kid with a roommate in a dorm-like setting. And you know that if you moved somewhere cheaper, that you could probably afford to buy a house. And so I understand why people are leaving, but that's not good for places like California. You know, if we have younger people move out, then we're left with really an older population. So, plus we need people to take jobs as well. The top 2 markets in Zillow's ranking, St. Louis and Detroit, scored well in terms of affordability. And so the best markets, they say, for first-time home buyers are mainly in the Midwest. But I get it. People want to go get a new job in a place where they can actually afford to live. It's another problem we have in California as we talk about the price of our homeowners insurance going up, right? How affordable is that going to be for people? I don't know. I was looking at this. Let's end with something we're actually doing right. I was looking at this story a couple of days ago, and I thought I was going to have the study author on the show, but she unfortunately couldn't make it. But this story about how electric vehicles and what we're doing, shifting from gas-powered cars to electric vehicles, seems to be making a difference when it comes to air quality in the Bay Area. And so UC Berkeley atmospheric researchers recorded evidence of this. They set up this network of CO2 monitors. They have 80 stations, 7 in San Francisco. Their network stretches from Sonoma County through Vallejo and down to San Leandro. And so between 2018 and 2022, 57 of the sensors in this Berkeley Environmental Air Quality and CO2 network recorded a steady decrease in CO2 emissions. And they say that translates to a 2.6% yearly drop in vehicle emission rates. 2.6% doesn't sound like a lot to me. But they say it's 2.6% less CO2 per mile driven every year. So, I mean, that's a dent, right? An estimated 70% of CO2 emissions come from cities, yet few urban areas have data about where the emissions originate. And so they say we're at about, according to Cal, we're at about 1.8% per year. To get to the state's goal, we need to get to 3.7%. So they say it's not crazy higher than where we are. We're almost halfway to the goal, but we have to sustain that for another 20 years. They say the results emphasize the urgent need for accelerated actions to reduce CO2 in order to achieve our very ambitious goals of zero emission targets for a lot of cities. The findings, if you're interested, are published in the April 1st edition of Journal of the Environmental Science and Technology. So it looks like we're on the right track. Lastly, did you know here in the Bay Area that we have an F Everyone gang? I think they actually use the word. The gang is called F Everyone, which I guess if you're going to have a gang, why not? These people in the F Everyone gang use sledgehammers, bolt cutters, and crowbars, apparently, allegedly, to burst and bust their way in to cigarette stores around the Bay Area. They cared so little about the police coming to get them, they returned to the same Concord store 2 more times after BART officers interrupted them the first time. This F Everyone gang has been linked to at least 34 burglaries and an estimated loss of $970,000 within a 2-month time period. They have evaded pursuing officers time and time again, made off with, allegedly, $200,000 from a Chanel store in Southern California, and they even recorded a rap music video featuring a stolen Jeep that had been at a half a dozen burglaries. Police are identifying 3 suspects they claim are part of this Oakland-based gang, with a name to match the burglary's MO. F Everyone. I'm telling you, the gang is a subset of a larger group. They're known as ENT, which has sadly been linked with a bunch of shootings around the East Bay. So prosecutors have filed charges against the 3 in connection with this burglary spree. They've only got 1 of them in custody, and 2 others have arrest warrants, and they are considered fugitives. But police have been linking this group, the F Everyone folks, to burglaries in Benicia, Union City, Vacaville, Concord, Brentwood, San Leandro, Vallejo, Livermore, Tracy, Walnut Creek, Dublin, Oakland, as far south as San Diego. I'm telling you. I mean, the one guy they did arrest was pretty easy to identify. His name is Robert Lee Johnson. He's from both Tracy and Oakland. He's 26. And police say he was actually wearing an ankle monitor, a police ankle monitor, when the burglaries happened, as a condition of parole for a prior home invasion robbery conviction. They also say, the police, that Mr. Johnson recorded and posted a music video where he's sitting on and in a Jeep that was linked to several of the crimes. So he's now facing 30 counts of burglary and vandalism. Uh, I'm telling you, these guys, there's a couple other suspects they're looking for with all of this. I just love the name of the gang. F everyone. Clearly. But if this is the crimes type of spree, why aren't we cracking down on these people more? How are they evading arrest? Are we not looking up for them? Like, shouldn't their pictures be posted all over the place? I don't know. All right. Well, we've come to the end of the Nikki Medoro show. Up next is the Mark Thompson show. That starts in mere moments. And of course, it's a David K. Johnston kind of day. Politics is going to be really, really a great topic of conversation in just a few moments. Jefferson Graham also coming today on the Mark Thompson show. So I do hope you'll join me for that. And then the after party live following the Mark Thompson show. Thank you for being here. Again, huge thank you to Maud for the $25 and the very kind comments. Huge thank you to Spencer Jaffe for always supporting the show and for being here. And thank you to you for spending the morning with me on all your comments as well. So again, I'll see you in just a few moments on the Mark Thompson show, and I'll see you tomorrow with Nikki as well. So until then, here's Jake.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're all so the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom.